Tom Cruise. For over 4 decades, his name has been synonymous with Hollywood's biggest blockbusters. From Top Gun to Mission Impossible, Cruise has defied age, gravity, and even common sense, performing his own death-defying stunts well into his 60s, flashing that trademark smile, and standing as one of the last true movie stars. But behind the dazzling career and the billion-dollar box office receipts lies a far more complicated and painful story. Because at 63, the man who seems to have everything, money, fame, and an untouchable legacy, is living with heartbreaks that no amount of success can erase. Failed marriages, fractured relationships with his children, a lifelong entanglement with one of the most controversial organizations in the world, and an isolating sense of loneliness. All these truths make the story of Tom Cruise not just one of triumph, but also of tragedy. This is the story of how the boy who dreamed of escaping a broken home became the world's biggest star, and how, at 63, the cost of that dream has left scars deeper than any action scene could ever reveal. Tom Cruise was born Thomas Cruise Mapother IV on July 3, 1962. In Syracuse, New York. His early life was far from the glossy Hollywood image we associate with him today. Cruise grew up in a household defined by instability. His father, Thomas Cruise Mapother III, was an electrical engineer but also an abusive presence in Tom's life. Cruise has described him as a bully and a coward, a man who hit his children and left lasting emotional scars. Adding to the hardship was the fact that Tom struggled academically. He was diagnosed with dyslexia, which left him feeling insecure and isolated in school. Constant moves, his family reportedly lived in nearly 15 different places by the time he was a teenager, meant Tom never had a stable group of friends or sense of belonging. The young Cruise often felt like an outsider, desperate to prove himself. Yet it was these very struggles that planted the seeds of his ambition. Tom found refuge in athletics and theater, where he discovered not only a talent for performance, but also a fierce determination to succeed. Acting gave him something he had never known: confidence. After a brief flirtation with the idea of becoming a priest, Cruise set his sights on Hollywood, and he pursued it with the same relentless drive that would later define his career. His early breaks came quickly. After small roles in Endless Love, 1981, and Taps, 1981, casting directors took notice of his intensity. Then came 1983's Risky Business. With one unforgettable dance scene in a button-down shirt and socks, Tom Cruise went from hungry young actor to overnight star. His charisma was undeniable, his energy infectious, and Hollywood had found its new leading man. But it was Top Gun in 1986 that catapulted Cruise into the stratosphere. As hotshot Navy pilot Pete Maverick Mitchell, Cruise embodied the spirit of 1980s America, confident, rebellious, and larger than life. The movie grossed nearly $360 million worldwide, turning him into an international sex symbol and cementing his place among Hollywood's elite. What audiences didn't see, however, was the insecurity that still lingered beneath the surface. Despite his newfound fame, Cruise remained haunted by the ghosts of his childhood: the bullying, the instability, the need to prove himself. These early wounds would shape not only his career choices, but also his personal relationships for decades to come. Throughout the late 1980s and 1990s, Cruise dominated the box office. Films like Rain Man, 1988, Born on the 4th of July, 1989, and A Few Good Men, 1992, proved he wasn't just an action star but also a serious actor capable of depth and nuance. He earned critical acclaim, Golden Globes, and Academy Award nominations. And yet, even in the glow of success, Cruise's personal life was already beginning to show cracks. His need for control, perfection, and loyalty, traits born from his turbulent upbringing, would soon collide with the pressures of fame and the complexities of love. By the time he launched the Mission: Impossible franchise in 1996, Cruise had everything he thought he'd ever wanted: wealth, stardom, and influence. But as history would reveal, his personal life was anything but stable. What unfolded in the decades that followed was a series of heartbreaks that no blockbuster could erase. For all of Tom Cruise's incredible success on screen, his personal life has long been defined by heartbreak, particularly in love and family. His 3 marriages, to Mimi Rogers, Nicole Kidman, and Katie Holmes, were each high-profile, each filled with moments of romance and passion, but all ended in painful and public collapse. Cruise's first marriage was to actress Mimi Rogers in 1987. At the time, Rogers was the bigger star, and she introduced Tom to Scientology, a connection that would forever alter the course of his life. Their marriage was brief, lasting just 3 years, but Rogers later hinted that Cruise's ambition and his growing obsession with spiritual discipline left little room for intimacy. It was during this marriage, however, that Cruise's career truly took off. When they divorced in 1990, Cruise was already one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. Shortly after, Tom met Nicole Kidman on the set of Days of Thunder, 1990. Their chemistry was immediate, and within the year, the two were married. For the next decade, they became Hollywood's golden couple, glamorous, talented, and seemingly untouchable. Together, they adopted 2 children, Isabella and Connor, and appeared in several films, including Far and Away, 1992, and Stanley Kubrick's haunting Eyes Wide Shut, 1999. But behind the red carpets and magazine covers, their marriage was far more complicated. Kidman later revealed that she suffered a devastating miscarriage early in their marriage, an event that brought both heartbreak and distance. The couple's decision to adopt was born partly from that tragedy, but whispers of control and tension soon surrounded them. By 2001, the fairy tale had ended. Their divorce shocked fans, and Nicole admitted she was blindsided by Tom's decision to walk away. For her, it was as if their life together had been erased overnight. For Cruise, the split with Kidman marked a turning point. While his career continued to soar, his personal relationships became increasingly fragile. In 2005, he found himself in a whirlwind romance with Katie Holmes, an actress 16 years his junior. The media quickly dubbed them Tomcat, and their relationship became a tabloid obsession. Cruise famously declared his love for her by jumping on Oprah's couch, a moment that went viral before viral was even a thing. In 2006, they welcomed their daughter, Suri Cruise, and later that year, they married in a lavish Italian ceremony. For a time, it seemed as though Cruise had finally found lasting happiness. He spoke often of his deep love for Holmes, and his joy in fatherhood appeared genuine. But just as with his previous marriages, cracks soon appeared. Reports surfaced that Holmes felt increasingly trapped by the pressures of Cruise's world, from his demanding career to his deep ties to Scientology. By 2012, their marriage ended in one of the most shocking celebrity divorces of the decade. Holmes was granted primary custody of Suri, and Cruise's relationship with his youngest daughter has reportedly been strained ever since. Sources have claimed that Cruise hasn't been publicly seen with Suri in over a decade, a fact that remains one of the most heartbreaking aspects of his personal life. 3 marriages, 3 very public endings, and children caught in the middle of a world where love and loyalty were often overshadowed by control, ambition, and faith. For a man who could conquer the box office, Tom Cruise could never quite conquer the complexities of love. By his early 50s, the actor who had seemed to have it all was in many ways alone. The man who leapt off skyscrapers and clung to planes in flight could not hold on to the relationships that mattered most. And that tragic pattern would only deepen as his loyalty to Scientology began to shape his life in ways few outside the church could understand. If Tom Cruise's marriages defined the public perception of his personal life, then Scientology has defined the shadow that hangs over it. To understand the tragedy of Cruise at 63, you cannot separate the man from the church that has both elevated him and, in the eyes of many, isolated him. Cruise was first introduced to Scientology in the late 1980s through his first wife, Mimi Rogers. What began as an exploration of a spiritual path soon turned into a lifelong commitment. By the early 1990s, Cruise was not only a member, but quickly became one of the church's most visible and powerful figures. For Scientology, having one of Hollywood's biggest stars as their unofficial ambassador was a triumph. For Cruise, it offered something he had craved since childhood, a sense of belonging, discipline, and unwavering support. Scientology leader David Miscavige forged a close bond with Cruise, reportedly becoming one of his closest friends. Miscavige ensured Cruise was treated not just as a celebrity member, but as royalty within the church. Special facilities were built for him, courses were tailored to his needs, and Cruise was held up as the ultimate example of Scientology's success. But with that pedestal came consequences. Scientology's teachings emphasize loyalty to the church above all else, and this dynamic bled into Cruise's personal relationships. Numerous reports over the years have suggested that the church played a role in the breakdown of his marriages. Nicole Kidman, who was not fully committed to Scientology, allegedly found herself at odds with Cruise's devotion. Their adopted children, Isabella and Connor, were raised in the church, which some say created distance between and publicly. Cruise's image also began to shift in the early 2000s. While he had long been admired as Hollywood's golden boy, his outspoken defense of Scientology, paired with a few infamous television moments, sparked backlash. His 2005 interview with Matt Lauer on The Today Show, where he passionately criticized psychiatry and dismissed the use of antidepressants, raised eyebrows. His couch-jumping declaration of love for Katie Holmes on Oprah became a cultural punchline. These moments may seem trivial in hindsight, but they marked a turning point. For many fans, Tom Cruise transformed from beloved superstar to eccentric zealot. The perception of him as controlled by Scientology began to overshadow his career, no matter how many box office hits he delivered. Over the years, several high-profile ex-Scientologists, including actress Leah Remini, have spoken publicly about Cruise's role in the church, accusing him of turning a blind eye to its darker practices. Remini, in particular, has been vocal, calling Cruise the most powerful person in Scientology next to Miscavige. While Cruise has never directly responded to these accusations, the ongoing criticism has only added to the complicated layers of his public image. And yet Cruise has remained steadfast. To this day, he continues to be one of Scientology's most visible members, attending events, funding projects, and maintaining his loyalty to the organization that has defined much of his adult life. The tragedy, however, is clear. While Scientology gave Cruise a sense of purpose and family, it also cost him dearly. His marriages crumbled. His relationship with his daughter Suri remains estranged, and many of his Hollywood peers have kept him at arm's length. At 63, the man who can command entire film sets and inspire global audiences finds himself increasingly isolated in his personal life, bound by an organization that critics say has both empowered and imprisoned him. For Tom Cruise, Scientology has been both a foundation and a fortress. But as the years pass, one cannot help but wonder, has that fortress become a prison, leaving him with walls so high that not even the people he loves most can find their way in? In 2022, Tom Cruise stunned the world with the release of Top Gun: Maverick. Nearly 4 decades after the original, the sequel became a cultural event. Not just a blockbuster, but a reminder that Cruise still had the power to unite generations of moviegoers. The film grossed nearly $1.5 billion worldwide, reigniting theaters after the pandemic and earning Cruise some of the best reviews of his career. Add to that his ever-growing mission, impossible franchise, and Cruise remains one of the few stars who can guarantee global box office success. Professionally, he is at the top of his game, but personally, the picture is far less triumphant. At 63, Tom Cruise has no partner by his side, and his closest family relationships are complicated at best. His daughter Suri, now a young woman, is reportedly estranged from him. They have not been publicly photographed together in over a decade. While his adopted children with Nicole Kidman, Isabella, and Connor remain in contact, they are firmly rooted in Scientology, and their relationships with both parents have been shaped by the church's influence. For Cruise, this means even his role as a father is filtered through layers of distance and control. Friends outside of Scientology appear scarce. Reports over the years suggest that Cruise keeps a tight circle, most of whom are tied to the church. For a man with boundless charisma on screen, his private life seems strikingly quiet. When he's not on set, he is often seen alone, flying his planes or preparing for his next stunt. The daredevil image may thrill audiences, but it also underscores a deeper truth. The greatest risks Cruise has taken have not been in love, but in his willingness to put his body on the line for films, perhaps to fill the void left by the connections he no longer has. There is also the weight of time. Cruise has spent more than 40 years in the public eye, and his relentless pursuit of perfection has come at a cost. Few actors could keep up with his pace, his discipline, his obsession with control. While this has preserved his career, it has often alienated those closest to him. It is telling that despite being one of the most famous men in the world, Cruise rarely allows the public a glimpse into his private world. Unlike other stars his age who share their lives openly on social media, Cruise remains shrouded in mystery, as if the legend of Tom Cruise has become more carefully maintained than the man himself. And so, the tragedy emerges. Here is a man who has achieved everything he dreamed of as a boy: wealth beyond measure, critical acclaim, legendary status in Hollywood, yet finds himself facing his 60s with a kind of loneliness that no stunt, no premiere, no standing ovation can erase. His greatest roles have made him seem larger than life, but his reality reveals a man cut off from the simple joys of family connection, enduring love and peace outside of work. Still, there is resilience in Tom Cruise's story. He remains committed to his craft with an intensity unmatched by his peers. He continues to push his body, his art, and the limits of cinema itself. He refuses to slow down, as if motion itself keeps the emptiness at bay. In that way, Tom Cruise is both inspiring and heartbreaking, a reminder that even the brightest stars can burn alone in the night sky. At 63, Tom Cruise is not just an icon. He is a paradox, a man who gave the world unforgettable stories, who risked his life for our entertainment, but who could not hold on to the most personal stories of all, the ones written behind closed doors in the hearts of those closest to him. And that is the true tragedy, that the man who could conquer the world has struggled most with the things that matter when the lights go down and the cameras stop rolling.